It would take hours to go over how ridiculously obvious the murder of Jeffrey Epstein was in that federal jail in New York. I mean, the coroner said his neck was broken in 3 spots. It would take a gorilla to do that. And the cameras all turned off magically. Now we're learning that they put nitrous oxide in from good sources and made the guards pass out. This was a state-level hit because Epstein was threatening to go public. Thought he was getting out soon. And to have Kash and Bongino, and look, I know I've seen Bongino and Kash talk about Epstein and how he didn't kill himself. Like, well, we hadn't seen the files. It's on record they all disappeared. You've seen the files. The files you were given? Give me a break. There's 3 things don't hang themselves. Christmas tree lights, drywall, and Jeffrey Epstein, as Senator Kennedy rightfully said. Here's a clip of Kash and Dan Bongino making fools out of themselves.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
I mean, just the body language of Bongino and Patel is just gut-wrenching. I mean, they, I guess it's kind of endearing that they're not good at BSing. But I know what the tactic is. They just say, that's a dead horse, can't be proven one way or the other, move on. Why couldn't they just say they're investigating it? I mean, come on, guys. Come on, please.
Did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself? Who killed Jeffrey Epstein? How about that?
Let me talk about, so I've spent a lot of time in federal detention facilities as a public defender before, talking to my clients, so I kind of know how those work. He was in isolation. He was in a unit where he's in there not just to protect himself, but he's in there to protect the rest of the prison population because he was such a high profile case. What happens is in these units, there's supposed to be 24/7 guard duty on him directly. And from what I was able to learn in this, in the lead up to his suicide is the guard fell asleep. Now, I don't really buy that, but it's almost impossible to prove otherwise unless you can obtain the videotape. And usually there isn't video looking into people's cells for a lot of reasons. And so we're stuck with that narrative. And do you know what happened to these guards? Supposedly they were going to get charged, but I've never heard anything that happened to these prison guards. Maybe we should try to find them and let's talk to them.
Yeah.
Christmas ornaments, drywall, and Jerry Epstein. Name 3 things that don't hang themselves. That's what the American people think.
Six months ago, I was sent a message. Somebody came to see me, and among the things that I was told 8 months ago, among the things I was told so that I would understand what we are up against, is I was told a detail of the crime scene. Oh, I'm getting a message from someone saying, do not reveal this. Sorry, I actually got a message from, I got a message I just got a message flashed up to me from someone saying, do not reveal this. And it's a person who knows.
Okay, I don't want anybody, I don't want you to reveal anything that
Anyway,
could harm an
I'm sorry.
investigation or harm you. That's okay, that's okay.
No, I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you. It was from the Epstein death scene. There was a detail that was shared with me, just one little detail of the scene that tells you, that was conveyed to me so I would understand what we were up against. And the the detail of the scene, of the crime scene, was one that this one detail shows that it was not a suicide. It was in fact a murder. And it's a detail that once you understand it, reveals we have to be, this isn't the Bongino family. This isn't the Genovese family. This had the sophistication. Well, I've got to say it now because otherwise they might kill me. But no, literally there was just someone sending me flash message, do not say this. So this is you know how the guards.
Come on, Patrick, you
know how the guards, we know that the guards, okay, to the person who just sent me that message, send me an explanation. Should I or should I not? If you don't want me to say this, give me 10 words as to why I should not say this. In the meantime, I'm going to give a little bit more color. It was a detail that was meant to communicate to me it was a murder and indicate to me the seriousness of the people behind it. Well, I guess it's too late. It was the Epstein crime scene, and the guards, I was told that the guards, you know, who fell asleep in the...
Right.
Fell asleep, yeah, and we all assumed they were broad. Yeah, we all thought that. Well, guess what? They did fall asleep. Their blood was tested the next morning, and they found traces of nitrous oxide. So what's that tell you, Ann?
Wow.
Nitrous oxide is laughing gas, but doctors use it. Laughing gas.
Right, dentists use it. Dentists use it, right.
So that tells us that somebody snuck into a federal facility, a canister of laughing gas. They got access to the ventilation system. They snaked a hose to the right room, turned it on, knocked out the guards. Then they knocked out 14 cameras on that floor. Probably there's a goon cop down, a dirty cop who was in a cell down the block. He was probably the guy who did it. This was not confirmed to me, but he was let in. His door was open. He went and killed Epstein. And then they went back to your cell, and then they retrieved the hose. Someone retrieved the hose and exfilled, took out the canister of laughing gas. Now, that tells us something. Does that sound like a Bongino hit, or does that sound like maybe a state-level actor?
State level, for sure. Absolutely. Mossad or...
So, given that, and it's obvious and logical when you think about it for about 10 seconds, the identities of the other inmates on that cell block are critical. Your brother was alone in his cell.
Right.
So any one of those inmates could have killed your brother. Do we know who they were?
No, I can't find out who they were. There were 7 other cells, each with 1 or 2 people in them.
Yes.
Which means it's either anywhere from 7 to 14 people, other than my brother, on the tier at night. I don't know who they are, or I know one, that guy Tattaglione, who was Jeff's cellmate for a while. He was there, and he was there for a long time. So if Jeff was killed, it's a possibility that somebody was planted in there. Cell doors were left unlocked. And then from what I understand, a number of prisoners were transferred off of that tier after the death. So if somebody was planted, he killed Jeff, and a day or 2 later he's transferred out, and he disappears into the ether. I don't know who the prisoners were. I'd like to find out who they are, and where are they now?
What information are you still seeking about his death?
Well, who were the prisoners on that ward that night? How long were they there for? Now, if somebody was on that ward for, a long time, like his roommate, then, obviously they weren't planted there, 2 years ago to kill Jeff then. So who was transferred onto that ward in the week or 2 before he was killed? And where are they now? Where were they transferred to? Were these real prisoners, or was it a plant?
Correspondent Sharon Alfonsi took us inside the jail cell where convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in August. After a 5-month investigation, 60 Minutes obtained photos of the autopsy and the jail cell. Some of them, we caution you, are quite disturbing. Sharon spoke to a forensic pathologist, Dr. Michael Baden, who was hired by Mark Epstein to investigate his brother's death.
It appears he had some kind of sleep apnea machine. You can see a long electrical cord.
Yes, there were other wires and cords present that it would have been easy to use to hang oneself within a few minutes.
But the key reason Dr. Baden thinks Jeffrey Epstein's death might be a homicide is because of the unusual fractures he saw in Epstein's neck.
There were fractures of the left, the right thyroid cartilage, and the left hyoid bone.
This is an autopsy photo of Epstein's broken hyoid bone, a U-shaped bone that sits under the jaw that part of the tongue attaches to. The thyroid cartilage sits at the front of the neck.
I have never seen 3 fractures like this in a suicidal hanging.
And Dr. Michael Baden joins us. Good morning, Dr. Baden. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
You observed the entire 4-hour autopsy of Jeffrey Epstein.
I did.
What stood out to you the most in that?
What stood out to me the most was that the ligature mark was made after a few hours. He'd been dead for a few hours at the time he was discovered. And that there were multiple fractures of the Adam's apple, the thyroid cartilage, and the thyroid and the hyoid bone that are more indicative of a homicidal strangulation than a suicidal strangulation.
So in 1,000 cases that you've reviewed in the New York State prison system since Attica,
right,
you've never seen a 3-bone fracture in a suicide.
That's correct.
But the New York State Medical Examiner, which also looked at this, they say, no, we have seen it and we think it's a suicide.
So I've been reviewing all the records since Attica as to when a suicide occurs. We haven't, in New York State's prison, seen that kind of fractures, number one. Number two, maybe our experiences are different, but this certainly suggests that it could be a homicide.
But it's important, though, to point out, too, that, because 60 Minutes also, to Tony's point, also talked to other pathologists who also agree with the suicide findings. You're being paid by the Epstein family. Isn't it in your best interest to go along with what they believe happened?
They don't believe that happened. They wanted to know what happened. I think that the brother or the estate would just as soon have this to be a suicide because there's no advantage to them to be a homicide. Mark Epstein is now concerned about a homicide. If his brother was killed because he knew too much, is he also at jeopardy? Other people at jeopardy. So
they don't suspect that their brother was murdered?
Well, because of the autopsy findings, they feel the brother may have been murdered.
Exactly.
But as a medical examiner, when I was chief medical examiner in New York City, just because I would find a jail suicide doesn't mean that I was on the side of the city or the state. We have to call it the way we see it. Yep. So it doesn't matter when I'm being paid by New York City or being paid by the family.
I want to go back to the point you made. We don't know the position of Epstein's body when he was found dead.
That's correct.
And that's a crucial question.
It's a very big question.
Because the marks on the neck is not at all typical for a hanging suicide. A hanging suicide, 90% of the time, there are no fractures. Maybe 10%, 15%, there could be a hyoid or a thyroid fracture. Right. You don't have 3 fractures with the weight of the body on the ligature. You have to have a lot more pressure by ligature or by hands to get those fractures.
You also say that the wounds on Epstein's neck, and we have pictures of those. As we caution you, these are disturbing pictures. Do not match the noose that was found in his cell.
That's right. There are a number of things on the noose. The noose is a very narrow noose, and there's a little imprint on one of the nooses of a pressure of a mark that could not have come from the smooth sheet.
On his neck, not the noose, you're saying.
That's attached, part of the noose, that it's on the neck, adjacent on the skin, that looks more like an imprint from a rope rather than from a smooth bed sheet. And there's nothing on the bed sheet that blood or that would indicate it was around his neck. And the FBI or the medical examiner would have done swabs for DNA on the ligature. Whose DNA is on it? Was it Epstein alone, or was it Epstein somebody else?
And so important because we're talking about justice for his alleged victims, and also
that's right.
The question of did he have other stories to tell?
But there's no advantage to the family that this is a homicide or suicide. There's no money involved. No.
All right.
They just want the truth.
That's right.
Dr. Michael Baden, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
You remember where Epstein killed himself? I asked Bill Barr about that, why everything seemed to go wrong that night.
When I first heard all the information and all the coincidences here, I was suspicious.
What were the coincidences? I mean, those were a lot of coincidences.
Well, one of the cameras was out.
Right.
He was supposed to have a cellmate. The cellmate left. They didn't replace the cellmate. And the guards who were supposed to check him every half hour didn't check him.
My EMT source said he was on the scene immediately to pull Epstein's body out to the morgue. And when he got to the cell, he saw 7 people there touching Epstein's body and moving stuff around.
Do you think Epstein killed himself sincerely?
I don't know. I will say that, he was a fixture in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
I don't know what Barr said about it either. I have no idea what he said. What did he say? He killed himself, probably?
He said he killed himself and that they were going to do this investigation. They never did the investigation. It's never been public.
Well,
and they hid it. And, why are they doing that? And clearly Barr knew. But why would Bill Barr be covering up the death of Jeffrey Epstein?
Bill Barr didn't do an investigation on the election fraud either, okay? He said he did, and he pretended he did, but he didn't. But possibly he didn't.
Do you think it's possible that Epstein was killed?
But there are those people, there are many people, I think you're one of them, right? But a lot of people think that he was killed. He knew a lot on a lot of people.
He was killed.
You think so?
I think the closer you look, I'm not a conspiracy person at all. I believe everything I hear. But yeah, the closer you look into it, I mean, the Attorney General of the United States, your Attorney General clearly lied about the Epstein death.
Yeah.
Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself or did somebody kill him?
Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When do you think you'll have it done, Kash?
I think in the near future, sir.
Like before I die?
I mean, just the body language of Bongino and Patel is just gut-wrenching. I mean, I guess it's kind of endearing that they're not good at BSing.
Well, Kash, Patel and Dan Bongino were asked about Jeffrey Epstein, and they were adamant that the guy did off himself. But I don't know. I watched the clip and I have my doubts.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
I know it's hard work, but you promoted.
Yeah, they changed the subject immediately by editing. But first, before we go into the body language analysis, let's do a recap of all the suspicious circumstances that surround this and how it's so hard to just say, yeah, it's no big deal. We took a look at the file. Well, all this has been confirmed. Failure to follow jail protocols. He was supposed to have a cellmate and be checked every 30 minutes, but on the night of his death, his cellmate was transferred and not replaced, leaving him alone. Very convenient. Guards Tova Noel and Michael Thomas, assigned to check on him, did not perform the required checks and instead fell asleep for about 3 hours. Later falsifying records to cover up their absence. Oh, nice. The last time a guard was recorded near his cell was at 10:30 p.m. hours before his body was discovered. So yeah, the guy was just there. Malfunctioning security cameras. 2 cameras outside Epstein's cell malfunctioned on the night of his death, and footage from another camera was deemed unusable. Again, perfect timing, very convenient, leaving no reliable video record of the critical hours. And the camera that should have captured the cell door and surrounding area was corrupted, further fueling doubts about the official account. There were not 1 but 2 cameras that were faulty. It's impressive. Removal of Epstein's body and scene contamination. Epstein's body was removed from the cell before crime scene photographs could be taken, violating the Bureau of Prisons protocol that requires a death scene to be treated with the same care as a crime scene. Oh, this is very fast. Forensic and autopsy controversies. There was apparent self-deletion by hanging, but Epstein lawyers and independent pathologists questioned this, citing injuries more consistent with homicidal strangulation. Epstein had broken bones in his neck, while possible in elderly suicides and more common in deaths by strangulations. All right. Were also contusions on both wrists, an abrasion on his left forearm, deep muscle hemorrhaging in his left shoulder, an injury to the back of his neck, a cut of his lip. That was quite a fight. And, well, petechia, the burst capillaries found in his face and eyes are often associated with strangulation. And what else? Well, I think that's enough. I think that we can, you already get an idea. You can just search for what is the official status of what happened with Jeffrey Epstein. And the official thing, the thing that we know, and it's confirmed, it's not to be talking like, you saw Kash, Patel and Dan Bongino speaking like that. So we're about to analyze their body language, but remember to download my free 100 body language tips right in the description of this video and in the pinned comment. So before we do the analysis, we need to take a look at their body language, their baseline body language, so you can understand, so you can notice the way they actually behaved in all the other questions. It was a Fox News interview, and they were quite, calm and collected and very sure of themselves in all these other questions about James Comey, about January 6th, about the assassination attempts on President Trump. And I'm going to play 2 clips, very short clips, about how you see Kash, Patel and Dan Bongino speaking before that question so we can compare.
You're getting answers on what sourcing was utilized, what money was utilized, how many assets were utilized, who made those decisions. You're getting it. We can only control the FBI, but you're getting it from the FBI.
You notice that there's this very emphatic way of speaking. He's really sure of himself. He ends that sentence with his chin rather up, very sure of himself. He has some illustrator gesture, like he's using his left hand to emphasize his argument. You see that he is very comfortable answering this question in particular. What about Dan Bongino?
We dug far and wide to find it, and I'm pretty sure now we have a conclusive, definitive answer, but you and the public are going to have it. You're going to see it in writing over to Capitol Hill, but I just want to be sure we're clear, having been an agent and a police officer.
This was about the January 6th case, and you see that he was very sure. He was not stuttering. He was shaking, it's nodding. He was nodding over and over again, emphasizing his words. He was not rushing or anything. You already saw both men speak in a very confident manner, and that's the way that they were speaking for most of this interview. And then it came the Epstein question. And what happened with the Epstein question?
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
The first thing that you notice is that Kash Patel laughs. You can hear that in the background, and the interviewer, smiles when she sees him, or she hears him laughing. You can hear him in the background.
Committed suicide.
That is him laughing. Yeah, it's like he took that. Oh, yeah. We cannot know if that was a nervous laughter because it sounds like a dismissive laughter. It's a bit hard to listen. I don't know if I can do my thing here and maybe let me put the volume up in real time. That's Kash Patel's laugh. Maybe it's a dismissive laughter. Maybe it's a nervous laughter. It would help if we could see his face. But at that moment, the director decided, no, let's keep the camera on the interviewer. No big deal. We can move on.
People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked...
I think that saying, like, for so many people that want answers about these heinous crimes and want answers to what happened to Jeffrey Epstein and all the ones who were, under his favors, saying that people are entitled to their opinions is it's a bit arrogant. It's like, oh yeah, people are entitled to their opinions. They can have a better way could have been like, I can understand all the doubts and all the circumstances that I was reading, that people have their doubts regarding all the circumstances, but I can assure you, like, the way that he started was dismissive. Okay, I need to be dismissive about this right out of the gate, not even recognizing the fact that there are so many questions, and it's a very suspicious case. So that's how he decided to start.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing.
Notice that he is really not answering the question. He is citing his background. He is citing all that he apparently knows about the case. One thing could be, the only thing that could save him in all cases is that he's citing all this knowledge, because all this, errors happen all the time with anybody. But we are not talking about any regular cellmate or prison or inmate. All right, that is one thing. And number two, if this is something that happens all the time, then, well, this is truly a mess. And he could have said that. Okay, I can understand people's concern about the Epstein case, but all the circumstances, it's something that happens in prisons all the time. Prisons are a mess. I have the experience with that. I can understand. I have my doubts. He can be... he can connect in so many ways. The only way that he's connecting is trying to, you see that he does that, raising his eyebrows, trying to connect with the interviewer, trying to connect with his affirmation that he, as a public defender, he turns the question to himself. He is dismissive towards people's suspicions, and then he turns the question towards himself.
In that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one.
You know a suicide when you see one. All right. Okay. Then we could say that he's got the experience. I'm not going to argue with that. I have no way of arguing with that. What I want to argue with is the way that he was answering the questions. Like, yeah, he could say, there were many contradictions, there were many suspicious, coincidences, but he doesn't address any of that. Okay, you simply know suicide when you see one. Okay, I guess it's that simple, and you saw everything, and we know that there were no photos of the scene, and there were no cameras, and there were no checkup of him. So it's a bit too, let's say, I don't know what is the exact word. I wouldn't say irresponsible, but the word is dismissive, and I don't think that a dismissive answer is the right one here, because it's a big case.
And that's what that was.
He killed himself.
I noticed that when Bongino tries to, go for it, he speaks way lower than he used to speak in the previous clip that we saw about January 6th. And after he says that, I'm going to show you there's a very subtle, extremely subtle micro-expression. I mark it so you can see it. He presses his lips towards his left side, also subtle. It's very, very small, but it's there. You see that it doesn't happen with his right side. Okay, it was a very emotional reaction. I always talk about emotional reactions, but the left side of the face is way more, let's say, sincere than the right side of our face, as regardless if you are right-handed or what.
You want me to? I've seen the whole file.
You see how he's answering now? You remember how he was so sure about the January 6th? You're going to have results. You're going to have all this, and had this very calm and collected way of speaking. And now he's, hunching, he's stuttering. He is not. Remember that he was nodding, and now he's shaking his head all over the place.
Again, you want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
I've seen they immediately cut. All right, we don't know what happened after this, because I can understand that they edited this interview to make it maybe more dynamic or something, but Bongino's answer was cut short, because right after, you see the captions even mount over each other. After he says that, oh yeah, he killed himself.
I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
I know it's hard work, but
I know it's hard work. Like the connection with the next part of the interview. This is exactly how it was aired on Fox News. This is how you saw that live on TV. Has absolutely no way of connecting one with the other. Has a very poor editing. So we don't know why Bongino's answer was cut short. And we don't know either why he was so nervous about that. And we don't know why Kash Patel couldn't even acknowledge people's, doubts and concerns about this case. Okay, it's not that simple. You could say, all right. And Bongino could have said that because, well, he made a career about questioning things. And his audience, when he had perhaps the most successful conservative podcast in the United States, his audience wanted him to question narratives, to tell the truth, and in all cases, ask questions. This is a guy that is not enforcing any of that. I'm not saying that he's not enforcing his job. He couldn't be enforcing his job, but the spirit of what made Dan Bongino in recent years is not there. Again, their body language is, really suspicious in regards to the baseline that we had already established, and the way that they address the matters, the way that they address it is a bit suspicious. But I would like to know what you think about this in the comments. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. Much love and bliss.
Thank you for watching my video. Please visit my website at samstwitch.com. My X profile is at x.com/samstwitch_Sam. My YouTube channel is at youtube.com/samstwitch. I post videos that I cannot post on YouTube on my BitChute channel at bitchute.com/samstwitch.